All right, so we are doing the transition color now. You can see the difference it makes. If I get rid of all the other sketch layers, that's just my transition color, which is done at lower opacities. And then we build a sketch underneath it, so we don't have any of that white showing through. And then we build the flat color, turn that on underneath that. You see how it all comes together. It helps refine everything, helps blend the colors. You don't want to knead it too much, but notice where his eyebrows are more transparent towards the inside. Well, this is a perfect example of the transition color at a low opacity. Kind of break that surface up. Introduce variations in color and value that are very slight. And if I wanted to take the time, I could get to something that looked photorealistic, working long enough. So if we look at that handout, this is how you create more and more definition within your painting. So with this transition now, this duotone, soft-edged, that we're doing with lower opacities, we can do soft edges, then we can take the opacity down and do softer, and then we can put it back up and do little details, hard edges. And we can keep working until eventually it all looks very believable. It's just layering these textures on top of each other and then defining them layer by layer, soft edge by soft edge. Sorry, preview is not responding smoothly to me, but you get the idea. All right, now caricatures are by nature an abstraction. They're not supposed to look exactly like the people look in real life. They represent the people, but they are stylized, and that stylization comes from the artist who's doing the caricature. So that's kind of the trickiest part, I think, to doing human caricatures, is figuring out what kind of abstraction style you want to provide. And I try to let my brushstrokes do a lot of that for me. By never going to too tight a brush, I'm forcing myself to be kind of stylistically transparent, where you can see where my brush is going, you can see what I'm doing. So it feels fast, even though you might go over it time and time again to get it right. In animation, they call this line confidence. Just being able to put it down, react to it. And that's what I'm going to try to do to finish off this caricature. And even though caricatures aren't my favorite thing to do, I have friends that make their whole careers in it. They just always doodle faces and like to push the extremes of it. For me, it's just a helpful exercise every once in a while. Now the outside shapes of things, like the exact edges of the ear, I'll go in at the end with 100% opacity and kind of sharpen all of that. And I'm not going to try to draw every strand of hair that I see a highlight of. That would be a kind of beginner's mistake. Even though I can see them all, I just want to try to suggest that texture with my brush strokes. Come on. If Photoshop starts reacting slowly to you, that's when you want to save it. Just Command S before it just freezes up on you entirely. And I do find it very helpful from experience to lock layers that I don't want to accidentally paint on, like my flat color layer. Okay, so once I've kind of got the level of finish I desire, then that's going to help me on all my other caricatures, because I know at what point to kind of push it to, what to be happy with. If you just keep working it up and working it up until it's perfection, then the problem is you have to do that to every other aspect. And it might actually, in terms of human representations, might kill some of the spontaneity of it. All right. So when I find myself getting kind of too dainty, making small marks, then I start thinking of pulling out and looking at the big picture. Softening the hairline is another really good example of where the transition layer is needed to kind of work between all those different tones. So his hair isn't all that much different than his hair, but you notice how it suggests a lot more complexity just because of all these transition values in between. I'm not happy with his lips yet, but I'll get there. Sometimes better to paint from a distance. Now there's a nice tool now as we're getting into finalizing. I'm going to save it quick. And it's called the Navigator. So if you go to Window and the Navigator tool, it will show up in the corner here. And you can actually make this bigger. And I like to do that because it shows me what it looks like from a distance. And from a distance, that looks pretty smooth. His nose, the bridge of his nose is a little too sharp though. So if I'm up close and I'm not noticing those sort of things, I can see it in the Navigator and it will change as I change it. It's also a great way to jump from point to point, so I can zoom in and do that, not having to use the keyboard at all. So that is called the Navigator tool. All right, let's see. Feel like this eye could be a little bit bigger. They don't quite line up the way I want. So, what do? Take this whole thing, I duplicate it, I select that whole shape again, and I'm going to go to the lower layer, flat color layer, and duplicate it. Oh, I have to unlock it first. And now just with those two, actually it's probably not enough. I'm going to do it again with the sketch layer. All right, now I'm going to take those three layers, select them all, holding down Command, and merge them together, Command E. So now I have an eye layer that I can, that's all of them, that I can warp and change a little bit. Yeah, this likeness is not my favorite so far. Try turning this back on. See if this can help. His eye's in the right place. This ear could go bigger if I wanted it to. Yeah, I guess that's all right. That is better than what it was. Okay. So now on that layer, I transition. Not terrible. All right. So if that's about the level of finish I want for the face, now I need to do that for the rest of them. And I can start by just finishing off these bow ties. And so for that, I'm going to work at a slightly higher opacity, maybe like 70 or 80%. And just sharpen up these bow ties. Cut into them, show the collars, refine and define. Just enough. Again, not getting obsessed with details, kind of looking at it from a distance. Looking at the navigator, seeing how it all works out, making sure nothing looks really weird, especially in the eyes. Little shining teeth to show the different angles. All right. Slight secondary highlight in the eye there. Now this is a lot like carving out, painting not just the colors you want, but also the shapes around those colors. So the white. My brush keeps me from being too perfectly clean because I'm still using my custom brush, fairly large, fairly opaque. And I'm finding my level of finish. Try to bring everything up to the same level